Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to Valley Breakfast. Of course, it's a Thursday, which means it's our waffle hour, and we talk to writers, playwrights, poets, performers, people who write all sorts of things. Now, let me tell you now, the person I'm about to speak to, in his biography says he writes lots of things: spoken word pieces, theatrical monologues, stage plays, screenplays, radio plays, commercial commissions, novels. The list goes on. Stephen Camden, my goodness gracious me, you are a very busy man, are you not?
Yes, I think that's fair to say. I'm quite busy. I mean, not too busy. I like it. I like having lots of things going on at the same time. So yeah, I'm lucky in that respect.
And multi-talented as well. It's an absolute delight to talk to you this morning. Now, let's do this first of all. Now, I'm talking to you and calling you Stephen this morning, but you're also known by another name, both online and as your stage persona. Do you want to just enlighten us first of all how people might otherwise know you?
Okay. The name polar bear was something that I chose as a moniker early doors when you needed a kind of stage name. My journey into writing came via music and performance, and I was rhyming stories and stuff, and you needed a moniker, and all of them felt so aggressive and so quite. And I've been obsessed with polar bears since I was a little boy, and then the more I found out about them, the more I became pretentiously sure that I had so much in common with this species. So I just took the name, and it became a thing which was nice to give a bit of distance. But then, so there are people who know me as polar bear who don't know my real name. There are people who think I'm very, very silly for calling myself an animal, the king of the land beasts or whatever. But it just depends on what context it is. But I'm all right with it.
I think it's a nice thing to have, because it means you can also do the switch if you need to. It must be fantastic when working with kids if
exactly.
For them to go, polar bear is coming in today, or is it Mr. Bear?
Although sorry to interrupt you, but like the amount of times I've walked into a classroom, been introduced as polar bear, and some 5-year-olds has looked up at me and gone, "You're not a bear," and you're like, "I'm really not, man. I'm sorry." So it makes you. So, like I say, it has pros and cons, but it's a good leveler. It's good to keep your feet on the ground.
Yeah, it's never good to lie to the audience before you even begin. Now you've got a whole host of work that we could talk about, but let's talk about your latest book to start with.
Yeah.
So My Big Mouth. This is in very much this kind of story mode, and sort of very much aimed at a particular age group of kids.
Yeah. So the end of primary school. So I wrote it for myself, aged kind of 10, and with our youngest son in mind, like roughly 10. But they call it, they say like 8 to 12 when they put it on the shelves and stuff, middle grade or whatever they call it. But in my mind, it's about a boy who was 10 years old called Jay, and it's very much based on something that happened to me in terms of parents splitting up and wanting answers and not getting answers, being old enough to think you understand what's going on, but also not old enough that people are telling you and explaining stuff. So you end up kind of fabricating things and making stuff up. And before you know it, you've made up entire narratives. And it's about this boy who starts making stuff up, answers he's not getting, and it's spiraling out of control.
And that's the thing, is that kids need to see themselves in the books. And there are a whole host of kids that I've worked with and taught, and my own children, who have questions about, why families are not necessarily always identikit from one to another. And, we had so many years of every single family in every book being the 2.4 children version of what family life looks like.
Completely.
Yeah. Have you found that, that's speaking to kids that you're working with?
Yeah, well, I'm very lucky. I come from a real mix. My family are Jamaican and Irish. My family there are people who are together and not together. There are uncles who aren't uncles. It's a big pot of kind of glorious characters, and none of it is quote unquote conventional, as it were, in terms of particularly not in this country, I guess, in terms of what is perceived in stories. Definitely not the stories I, like you say, read or saw growing up. So that's always kind of fun. And I think it's just specific. I think that what the fun thing for me is representing what I know and seeing who that connects with and touches with. But I just trying to kind of imbue anyone I come into contact with, particularly younger people, just as like, whatever your story is valid and is exciting, and more so than ever, we need to hear all of them if you're up for telling them. So that's I view them as very much, the stories as very much the kind of tool to start things as opposed to being the end.
Do you find it easy to get into the shoes of kids, because you're writing from the point of view of, like you say, I think, is he about 10 years old in the book?
Yeah, this boy in this story, boy is Jay. Yeah, and something. I mean, I maybe I'm not the right person to answer that. I mean, I feel like they all feel very real to me. So it's a strange situation where I'm an adult, we have children, but I don't feel, whether it's right or wrong, I don't feel very different. It's all very fresh and all very, not even fresh. It still feels like me. The awkwardness, the embarrassment, the uncertainty, but also the kind of the anger and the frustration at things. It's still very much who I am. So it's more about a situation where situationally you put yourself in, and it just feels right. They feel like films. I'm sure it might reach a point where I kind of tip over and it feels like a bit too much distance has passed or time. But for now, it's just what makes sense. The idea is, I'm not like sitting down and going, now I'm going to write for 10-year-olds. I'm thinking about stories that are burning to be told, and they just so happen at the minute to be coming out in that for that age group.
Yeah, I think somebody said to me once, you only ever grow up on the outside. The insides of you generally tend to stay the same.
Mate, you know what I mean? And I'm sure it's just everything is just timing. And like, ask me one day, I'd feel like I'm the most middle-aged person you've ever met. Ask me again, I'd feel like it was my first day at primary school. It just depends. And I think you can get too bogged down in what you're trying to do. And that's what I'm kind of trying to do, is just tap into these feelings and then represent them in a way that hopefully is interesting and you can connect with. And then that's it, really.
Well, that will bring us very nicely onto your poetry, which we'll be talking about in the next section of the show. We're on the other side of the break. We're going to be listening to your first music choice. Now, you've gone for a bit of James Brown to kick us off.
I have, yeah.
Now, when I saw this playlist of yours, I thought this is going to be a very funky morning. Why James Brown? Does that speak to you?
Yeah, mate. James Brown was very, very important in my childhood. So James Brown was, me and my best friend Andrew, when we were in primary school, used to work out dance routines to James Brown tracks. We were obsessed. We'd seen a bit of some video clips of Soul Train, and we'd seen some stuff, old concert footage of him, and just just the showmanship of it, but also just the sounds. It just got us. It was Cold Sweat, and it's the one and the boss that I've chosen. It just got us. It was even before hip hop. This is what, and it's not. I don't think it's that strange that how much he was the most sampled artist in hip hop history. I think, but like the funk of it just kind of got us. So we would work out dance routines. First CD I ever got was a James Brown album on my first ever CD player on my 10th birthday, actually. 10th Christmas, sorry. So yeah, it was in the house a lot.
That's brilliant. Well, we'll be listening to it just on the other side of the break. We'll have the boss, James Brown.
Amazing.